Hi everybody, I'm Beebs Kelley. Welcome back to another video. Today, popular demand, the variety interview with the Meg, which I'm going to break into 3 separate videos. We will have a fashion edition looking at her photo shoot, and coming up a video discussing the actual interview itself, what substance it did or did not have. But first, let's start with perhaps the worst of the 3 parts to this series, which is the little video. There was like a weird little video interview thing that was only like 4 minutes long. It's cringe, but we'll get through it together. Before we watch it together, do consider subscribing if you have not already. I see you here. Go ahead and push the button if you want to. All right, let's do it.
Hi, I'm Megan, and I play a mean game of Scrabble, especially timed Scrabble. It's something that I've loved for a long time. I'm very good at Jeopardy, and I love to cook. I don't know if a lot of people know that. Maybe they do, but I also make a really solid bolognese sauce.
Okay, so I feel like this was yet another image rebrand. We've talked about Meghan's eras before. I have a video on it. I'll link it for you. Yes, it was a play on Taylor Swift's Eras tour. So this is the rebrand, very on the nose, of Nerdy American Mom. I took a glimpse at the first paragraph of the Variety interview, the typed up version, just so I had all my links organized for filming today. And she says, she's the American nerdy mom. This is the side of her that she wants to show. And you'll recall this Variety interview happened very shortly after the Cut interview happened. And in the Cut interview, if you missed that series, I'll link it for you. Really, she came across as very cold, very business-oriented, not very much fun, that's for sure. But I think she was trying to make herself look fun and trying to make herself seem super interesting, but she just didn't. She came across really pretentious and whatnot in that one. And so I think she saw this Variety interview as an opportunity to shift the narrative towards more relatable in her eyes, but this just isn't. Introducing herself as somebody who plays a mean game of Scrabble just comes across really contrived. It doesn't seem genuine, especially her delivery here. It seems very rehearsed, very contrived. And saying that she's not sure a lot of people know that she likes to cook is false. She has publicized that she likes to cook a lot. Many people think the bolognese sauce comment was taking from or copying Catherine, Princess of Wales, and Prince William, who apparently one of the first things Catherine made for him, or something that they would make together, or maybe it was he makes for her, I don't remember, was bolognese sauce. She would know this fact about the Prince and Princess of Wales, and thus should choose, any normal person would choose something different to say. They would choose a different specialty, since that one was sort of already like taken in a way, so as to not seem like you're copying. But she has no shame there and will shamelessly copy anyone and everything. Let's see what she says next. So this over-the-top tee-hee moment, the duck facing at the camera, it's not a good series of footage clips to include when introducing Meghan, because it immediately makes her look very self-indulgent and very self-absorbed. So I wonder if the Variety people were purposefully not doing her any favors, because when you're introducing someone, you don't want to show them in unlikable states. And this series of videos is not very likable. Of clips, just objectively speaking, it doesn't come across as likable no matter who it is.
I think within the industry, what we can do to help pay it forward for the generation coming up next is really to implement policies that are going to help families and people within the industry be able to have the balance to take care of their families and to be able to do their jobs. A high tide raises all ships. So if you can really adopt that motto and understand that by helping the people who are coming up, it's not taking anything away from you. It's just helping more people succeed. I think that's really key.
Okay, that's puzzling, because what industry is she speaking of exactly? Because at the time of this interview, she's far removed from show business, so it can't possibly be the industry of network TV. But that seems like that's what they're talking about, because they're showing clips of her days on Suits. Why would Meghan be talking about show business policy at all? That doesn't make any sense. Or helping other actors or actresses come up in the industry. That makes no sense. Very out of place. very strange direction to take here since she's not involved in that industry in the slightest at this point.
Harry, you're going to have to try and find a way of not expressing every feeling that you have every moment that you have them.
My favorite rom-com of all time is When Harry Met Sally.
I wonder if that was a troll using that specific clip of finding a way to not express every feeling that you have at every moment, because that's kind of one of Harry and Meghan's problems, is that they express every single fleeting feeling or thought and declare it as fact, and they'll do anything to try to drive that point home and seem like their feelings are justified when they're not. A lot of the times our feelings are not justified, but they are what they are, and that's okay to deal with, but to try to justify them the way Harry and Meghan do is bad. And so I wonder if they used that specific clip as a sort of sneaky way to point out what Harry and Meghan should actually take as a piece of advice.
But he put Julia Roberts in anything, and I'm going to be a fan of those too. Yeah, I think we all miss just a good laugh. I just want a good old-fashioned rom-com.
What are you and your husband watching together?
So once we've gotten the kids to bed and I've played a little Wordle or done my 10 minutes of Duolingo, I really wanted to relearn French. I had studied it for the 4 years in high school, and then it just went away. So after those two things, if we do turn on the TV, which is fairly rare, I think we're like most people where you just do endless searching until you get so tired of searching you don't watch anything. No, but there are a couple, there's some incredible shows on at the moment, and I think really watching great storytelling, there's nothing like it. So I would say White Lotus was a pretty good example of that.
I can't imagine Harry and Meghan liking White Lotus or getting it and the nuance fully, because there was a lot of dark humor lining that show. I love White Lotus. It's a fabulous series, really, really fabulous. But I can't imagine Harry and Meghan sitting down and watching it with how lame their sense of humor seems to be. But this was really weird, okay? Taking 5 minutes to get to the point where you just say what it is that you like watching, which apparently the only show she could think of was White Lotus at the time, fine. But to take that long to get to it is exactly what people who are very self-absorbed and higher in narcissistic traits tend to do. She threw in all these extra details that she could possibly throw in before actually answering the question. That's kind of annoying, very gratuitous. It doesn't come across well in an interview, obviously. It goes without saying. But this is kind of funny that she mentions French, because she had told Harry and or the royal family that she was fluent in French. And so one of the only times that she was with them for like a dinner, she was sat next to someone who was fluent in French and was embarrassed by the situation, apparently. And the good old-fashioned rom-com, the Wordle, all of this seems very rehearsed, very overdone. Her laugh at doing 10 minutes of Duolingo is so over the top. What's funny about that? Why is that so funny? I don't understand why she laughed so big at that. That's silly. And then the way she describes what she and Harry enjoy watching, where she's like, well, I think we just scroll the whole time and never find anything to watch. I don't know about you, but I always have a long running list of things that I want to watch that I just don't have time to watch. There's always stuff on my list that's like, ooh, that's the first thing I'm going to watch when I have time to watch something.
So our kids, Lily is only one, so she doesn't watch TV, but Archie, he's loved Octonauts for a really long time. It's amazing because he's getting into more throwback shows like Magic School Bus.
Is that amazing, or is that just simply what he's been exposed to? Kids will watch what you let them watch or what you show them.
Who would have thought? He thinks it's great. And so that's been pretty fun to sort of see it again through his eyes. And Storybots is fantastic. It is such great educational programming for kids that's fun. So many good songs. And I've become that mom where I'm like sitting around with friends and I start singing like, Tyrannosaurus, that's the chorus, Tyrannosaurus. I was like, what?
Stop. You're sitting around with friends and start singing out loud a children's song? No, you don't. That is false. Nobody does that. I get kids' songs stuck in my head all the time, but I'm not going to start singing them out in public because that would be weird. This is a lie. This is obviously just taking a step too far, kind of going over the top to try to seem relatable, way over the top, because she's putting it into a context where it's very much not genuinely how it happened, and that's where she makes the mistake. She tries to take it too far, embellishing the story just a tad too much.
What am I singing? Oh my gosh, I'm singing Storybook. I'm singing Storybox. I am not singing Beyonce in that moment. I'm singing Storybots.
Tyrannosaurus, that's the
Chorus, Tyrannosaurus. Okay, welcome to Archetypes. Let's do this. You ready? So Archetypes is my podcast that we just launched recently, and it's really about dissecting and unboxing these labels and these tropes that try to hold women back.
Well, it didn't turn out to be about that at all, because she took every single time the person she was interviewing said something, Meghan took that back onto herself and found a way to tell a story or an embellished version of something that was like, well, I went through this, or well, I did this, or that's just like how I had blah, blah, blah happen. She turned every single thing back onto herself, and it made the podcast not interesting to listen to, but it also made it to where there was no dissecting any labels at all, because the entire time it was focused on Meghan herself.
And define women as a one-note human being, but no human being is one note. So in the conversations I'm having with the women on this show, we really get to peel back the layers and remind ourselves that it's important and okay and perfectly normal to be a multifaceted human being.
That's really grandiose for what her podcast was. That's really over the top. But also, I don't think that the issue is that people feel pigeonholed by a label or an archetype and then thus feel like they can't be multidimensional, or that they're just that or one-dimensional. I don't think that's the issue at all. Not even a little bit. I think that that's the issue she has, that she has been portrayed as or outed as, for example, difficult and a bully and unkind and lacking compassion and awkward and stuff like that. And she doesn't like that. But even her depiction in the media has lots of layers to it. So that it's not sticking.
And we laugh and we have a lot of fun, but we also, I think, dig a lot deeper than some of us have been allowed to before.
Who's not being allowed to dig deeper? That doesn't make sense. But also, it came out that Meghan herself did not do all of these interviews and conversations, that a lot of them were recorded with like a producer asking the guest the questions and whatnot, and then Meghan just voiced over the in-betweens, and she didn't actually meet with a lot of the guests herself. So this in and of itself is a lie. She didn't sit there and laugh and have a lot of fun and have a lot of these deep conversations with a lot of the people. She only did some of the guests herself.
I think in moments of challenge or when you're trying to dig deeper into these conversations, it can be very heavy. Part of what I find a lot of strength or faith in, just looking at my kids, I know it sounds so cheesy, but my gosh, it's the most perspective building thing. And also I think recognizing that everything is temporary, to really just enjoy what time we have here, what we're doing with that time, and at least open the door for really meaningful conversation. Because I think once you turn meaningful conversation into action, game changer.
The problem is that she never does have very meaningful conversations, because she's always turning it back to herself and so focused on herself that then the conversations lack meaning beyond just her and the context of her. But more so, she never puts action behind her conversation. So there's never any action following it up anyway either. So let's take a quick look at some of the top comments here, which, as this first comment points out, Variety evidently has a sense of humor by keeping the comments section open. The response is overwhelmingly negative. How embarrassing for Markle. Yes. When they ask her questions about Harry or her kids, she says more about herself than the question they asked. It's true. She did. Even just when they asked what sorts of TV the kids like, she says that it's something that she gets to experience through her kids' eyes and how she's going around singing the songs all the time rather than the actual shows themselves or her kids enjoying them or things like that. Very true. How come no one told her that she was making a podcast about stereotypes and not archetypes? Yes, that was part of the branding problem with the podcast. I never understand what the heck she's talking about. When she first talks about helping people in the industry, what industry is she talking about? Then she says that it is perfectly normal to be a multifaceted human being. I wasn't aware that someone has said that it isn't. What exactly does that refer to? Good point. That's part of the problem with these interviews as well with Harry and Meghan, is that they're really sprawling. There's no clear direction, in part because of the way she chooses to answer questions, but also because they don't have a career that these sorts of publications normally would be involved with interviewing the people of. Variety, The Cut, other entertainment magazines like People Magazine and just all the rest. All these sorts of magazines tend to operate within entertainment industries. So they're usually interviewing musicians, performers, dancers, TV actors, movie actors and actresses. They're typically interviewing people who are more celebrity based, and then occasionally they'll interview somebody who's more of like a cultural or pop culture moment sort of a person, like for example, athletes when it's around the Olympics, or presidential candidates around the time of elections. So they'll occasionally branch out, like first ladies or things like that, when there's a moment in culture that makes those people relevant, but otherwise it's almost exclusively people within the entertainment industry. Harry and Meghan don't really fit into the typical person for these people to interview. For Variety to interview Meghan randomly, it's like, okay, well, why? Because she has a podcast coming out and she has a Netflix series coming up. That's why they took the gig, so to speak, or booked Meghan at all. But she doesn't have stuff that they normally would talk about and ask about. And when she's delivering anecdotes about herself, it's not usually very interesting stuff. There's not a lot of like interesting or relatable things here. And so then the interviewers are kind of grasping at straws and asking really random questions and stuff that's just not very interesting and doesn't really work. It's crazy how every time she speaks publicly, you can literally see and feel her acting. There's absolutely nothing authentic about her. And case in point, why she wasn't very successful in the entertainment industry. She didn't have a great success in her career because she has a very one-dimensional acting vibe. She's not very good at acting. Genuine question, what exactly has she accomplished? Not much. I noticed that she often figures out what the general public criticism of her is at the moment, then goes out of her way to send a narrative out there that counters that. She knows that people are making fun of her because she has less purpose now and is sitting around living off of wealth. What can we say to counter this? Tell them what I'm up to so that I sound productive and vaguely talk about change. Good point. Exactly what the technique seems to be. Meghan tries way too hard, and it's embarrassingly obvious to literally everyone. She comes off as very insecure and desperate deep down inside, quite the opposite of who she tries to pretend to be. Meghan, we all miss a good laugh. Everyone else, we sure had a good laugh with South Park. Very true. Great comment and perfect spot to leave this here. Be sure to subscribe so you do not miss my upcoming video where we dissect what she actually said during this interview, during the print version of it, and the fashion edition to follow. Thank you so much for joining me for today's video. I cannot wait to read your discussion in the comments, and I will see you next time. Bye!